الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن سار سبيله إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So I wish to welcome back everyone regarding concerning this weekend seminar with Sheikh Salim Qahtani. And the lecture for today, or what we'll be doing today in this series regarding from the book of Kitab al-Siyam. So one of the books in Fiqh that is called Al-Umda, that discusses concerning matters regarding fiqh. So with any further ado, we'll ask Sheikh Salim to commence. تفضل شيخ.
نعم. جزاك الله خيرا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. فنبدأ على بركة الله تعالى نشرح كتاب الصيام. وكتاب الصيام سنأخذه من كتاب عمدة الفقه أو العمدة في الفقه من تأليف الإمام المشهور ابن قدامة المقدسي رحمه الله تعالى. نعم.
So the Shaykh Allah that he started with the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then also sending the salutation upon the Prophet alayhi salam, that he mentioned that as for what we'll be discussing in this session is an explanation of the book of Umdatul bil Fiqh or Umdatul bil Fiqh by Ibn Qudama, and the chapter to be discussed is Kitab al-Siyam.
الصيام كما تعرفون إخواني هو ركن من أركان الإسلام. يعني لا يمكن أن يكون الإنسان مسلما إلا إذا كان مؤمنا بأن الصيام هو ركن من أركان هذا الدين. فكلنا نعرف أن الصيام واجب. كلنا نعرف أن الصيام واجب، ولكن هناك شروط حتى يجب الصوم على الإنسان، وهذا الذي سيبدأ يتكلم عنه المؤلف الآن، وهي شروط الصيام أو شروط وجوب الصيام. نعم.
So Sheikh Hafidullah, he mentioned regarding concerning that as for what is known that Siyam, fasting, is considered to be one of the arkan of Islam, and that we know that a person is not considered to be a Muslim unless he believes regarding fasting, regarding concerning this fasting, which is one of the arkan of Islam. And also he mentions that as most of us are aware, that regarding concerning that Siyam, fasting, that is considered to be a matter which is considered to be wajib, something that is a compulsory act to be carried out by the Muslim. And also he mentions that as for the author here, that he have started discussing concerning matters pertaining to Siyam by way of discussing concerning the shurut, those things that are considered to be the shurut, those conditions that relates to الصيام.
سيذكر المصنف هنا 4 شروط. إذا وجدت هذه الشروط 4 فإن الصيام يكون واجبا. قال رحمه الله تعالى: ويجب صيام رمضان على كل مسلم، هذا 1، بالغ، هذا الشرط الثاني، عاقل، هذا الشرط الثالث، قادر، هذا الشرط الرابع، قادر على الصوم. إذن هذه 4 شروط. تمام؟ المسلم هو الذي يؤمر بالصيام. أما الكافر فإنه لا يطالب بالصوم، وإنما يطالب بماذا؟ أولا قبل أن يصوم، نعم، يطالب بالإسلام. أحسنت. أولا يعني يدخل في الإسلام فينطق بالشهادتين، فإذا صار مؤمنا بعد ذلك نأمره بالصلاة والصيام والزكاة إلى آخره. فإذا مسلم يعني ليس كافرا. بالغ يعني إذا لم يكن بالغا بأن كان صبيا طفلا فهذا ليس واجبا عليه الصيام. إذا أراد أن يصوم له ذلك لكنه ليس واجبا عليه. عاقل يعني ليس مجنونا. أما المجنون أو الذي ليس عقله معه فهذا لا يطالب بالصيام. قادر، عكس القادر من هو؟ العاجز. فالعاجز لا يجب عليه أن يصوم. طيب ماذا يفعل؟ هذا سنعرفه إن شاء الله في الباب القادم. نعم. إذن هذه شروط 4: مسلم، بالغ، عاقل، قادر على الصوم. فإذا كان الإنسان بهذه الشروط 4 مسلما بالغا عاقلا قادرا على الصوم. ما معنى قادر على الصوم؟ يعني يستطيع أن يصوم، يعني لا يشق عليه ولا يمرضه ولا يزيد في مرضه، فهذا هو الذي يجب عليه أن يصوم. نعم.
So Shaykh Hafidullah, he started by discussing concerning that as for this matter regarding what are those things that are said to be of the condition for a person to fast, those conditions that should be in place for a person to fast. So he mentioned, from what is mentioned by the author, he mentioned يجب الصيام Ramadan, regarding that it's compulsory for a person to fast the month of Ramadan على كل مسلم. So there's 4 conditions that should be fulfilled for the person to fast the month of Ramadan. So it mentioned first that a person should be Muslim. So the first criteria is the person being Muslim. The second criteria, the person is baligh. that a person is of above the age of puberty. Third condition, the person is aqil, the person is of sound mind. And then the fourth, qadir ala as-sawm. And the fourth condition, the person that is able to fast. The person have the ability, or the person is able to fast. So the Shaykh mentioned that these are the four conditions that should be in place for the person to fast. They mentioned again regarding concerning the first condition. So those are the person who fulfill these conditions, that is a must upon them to fast. So one, he mentioned the person has to be a Muslim, and this will mean concerning the person that it goes in opposite to the person who is a non-Muslim. So al-Muslim, the opposite of this is the person who is a non-Muslim, where a non-Muslim is not upon them to fast, but the thing that is compulsory upon them first, that they should fulfill before fasting, the person that first, he accept Islam. So for the person who is a non-Muslim, what is required upon them, rather than fasting, first that they should accept Islam. Then I mentioned that the second matter is that the person that they're baligh, that a person that they're above the age of puberty, the person not considered to be a child. So the one who's not a child is allowed to fast, but it's not compulsory upon the child to fast. So that's the second condition. The third condition is aqil, that person also who's required to fast, that person should be one of sound mind, meaning that the person is not someone who's said to be and the person said to be of insane. So the person should be of one of sound mind and not a person who is insane. And the fourth condition is qadir ala as-sawm, that a person should be qadir, the person has the ability, the person is able. So what we mean by said the person has the ability, qadir, the person that is able to fast, that also the person that if he was to fast, he would not per se, he's not ill. Also, when I mean a person is qadir, the person that if he was to fast, that it will make his illness worse, more severe. So the person should be one who's qadir, is able to fast. Then Shaykh mentioned regarding concern that the person who's qadir, the person is ajid, the person not able to fast. Also that discussion will be discussed further later on the book regarding those people that are not able to fast. أيوة.
نعم. قال ويؤمر به الصبي إذا أطاقه. يعني الصبي قلنا هو الذي لم يصل إلى سن البلوغ. طيب هذا قلنا ليس واجبا عليه أن يصوم، لكن لو أراد أن يصوم لا يمنع. لو قال الصبي أنا أريد أن أصوم، نقول لا بأس، له أن يصوم وله الأجر، له الأجر. وبالنسبة لوالديه أو الأب الذي هو ولي أمره، فإنه ينظر في حال الصبي، إذا رأى أن هذا الصبي عنده طاقة، عنده قدرة على الصيام، فإنه يأمره بالصيام ليتدرب. كما أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال مروا أولادكم بالصلاة لكم؟ ل7 واضربوهم عليها ل10. فإذا بلغ المؤلف هنا لم يضع سنا للسن التي يعني يؤمر فيها الصبي بالصيام، وإنما وضع لها ضابطا، فقال الضابط هو أن يكون مطيقا. فإذا كان مطيقا للصيام فإن الوالدين يأمران، أو فإن الوالد يأمره بأن يصوم، والوالد يأخذ الأجر والصبي أيضا يأخذ الأجر. لكن لو لم يصم فليس عليه شيء لأنه ليس بالغا. نعم.
Then Sheikh mentioned regarding concern as the next point that is mentioned here, mentioned that وَيَأْمُرْ بِهِ الْسَبِيلِ, that also that the child can be commanded or instructed to fast if they are able. So Shaykh Hafidullah, he mentioned regarding concern that commented on this point, that he mentioned as for the child, that is not compulsory upon the child to fast, where the child is one who sabi, the one who have not reached the age of puberty, So it is not compulsory upon them to fast, but if they fast, if they were to do so, that's considered to be, it is okay, it is allowed for them to do so. Then Shaykh mentioned that as for this matter, it goes back to, for the parents or the father regarding his child or his children to look to see, is this child able, regarding concern, for the father to look to see, is the child able to can fast, and if the child is able, then he can instruct or command the child to fast, as in the hadith, and the child and the father would be rewarded for this. Then he mentioned that the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where the hadith meaning concerning that, the Prophet ﷺ, that he mentioned regarding that you should instruct that your children regarding as-salat at the age of 7. And when they reach a certain age, then you more so make it upon them that they have to fast. So he mentioned that that's concerning that the parents instructing the child so they can learn the habits and the ways of fasting. And also the Sheikh, he mentioned that as for the author here in the book, that he didn't per se mention a specific age regarding when the child should start fasting, but rather what he did is put certain type of guidelines in place, which is إِذَا أَتَاقَ, that if the child, that they are able, so the guidelines to be looked at or the thing to measure, is the child able to fast, then the person will use this as the guide regarding instructing the child to fast.
نعم. ثم قال ويجب أن يجب صيام رمضان بأحد 3 أشياء. إذا حصلت 3 أشياء فإننا نصوم. الأمر الأول والثاني لا خلاف فيه ولا إشكال فيه بين العلماء. الأمر الثالث فيه خلاف. الأمر الأول كمال شعبان، يعني إذا اكتمل شهر شعبان فإننا نصوم. خلاص إذا واضح أن شهر شعبان انتهى اكتمل، فما الذي يأتي بعد شعبان؟ رمضان. فلذلك إذا اكتمل شهر شعبان فإننا نصوم. الطريقة الثانية قال ورؤية هلال رمضان. إذا رأينا الهلال، النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إذا رأيتموه فصوموا. نعم، إذا رأيتموه فصوموا، فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه. نعم، إذا رأى المسلمون هلال رمضان انتهى، فحينئذ يصومون. هذه الطريقة الثانية. الطريقة الثالثة قال ووجود غيم أو قتر ليلة 30 يحول دونه. يعني هذه الصورة الثالثة هي التي فيها خلاف. أردنا أن نشاهد الهلال، ذهب المسلمون ليتحروا رؤية الهلال، تمام؟ فلم يستطيعوا أن يروا الهلال. لماذا؟ يوجد غيم أو يوجد قتر، القتر الذي هو الغبار، تمام؟ فلم يتمكنوا من رؤية الهلال. فالآن يحتمل أن الهلال موجود وأنه غير موجود، يعني يحتمل أن غدا رمضان ويحتمل أنه شعبان، لا ندري. فماذا نفعل في هذه الحالة؟ هذه مسألة فيها خلاف طويل جدا بين العلماء. المؤلف يقول نصوم احتياطا، نصوم احتياطا. فهذه هي الطرق 3 لصوم رمضان، إما أن يكتمل شهر شعبان، وإما أن نرى الهلال، وإما أن يكون هناك مانع أو حاجز فنصوم احتياطا. نعم، ليلة 30. نعم.
So the Sheikh mentioned regarding concerning that what is the next point to be discussed concerning what are the ways to determine when Ramadan starts, the ways to determine the ways to determine how to start Ramadan, the fasting of Ramadan. So I mentioned the author here that he mentioned that there's 3 ways to decide, is to make to decide as to how to go about starting Ramadan, that there's 3 systems that can be applied. So the Sheikh mentioned, as for the first 2, then there's no per se discussion, or those 2 ones are very more clear and straightforward. As for the third method regarding concerning how to begin Ramadan, there's some discussion around that matter. So it said that as for those the ways to commence a Ramadan, to decide the starting of Ramadan, that the first method that is mentioned regarding Kamal Shaban, that the month of Shaban, that he has completed its entire course or its entire day. So the month of Shaban has completely ended. So automatically the next day that after is Ramadan. So the completion of the month of Shaban, so that's the month that is before Ramadan, it has completed. So automatically what comes next would be Ramadan. The second method, so Sheikh said there's no ishkal regarding that matter, or any issues regarding that matter. The next method of deciding the start of Ramadan is regarding concerning the seeing of the hilal, so seeing of the new crescent, as they refer to it as. So you mentioned regarding concerning this matter also, that matter where if it is seen, then it means that the month of Ramadan have started by the seeing of the birth of the new crescent. Then as for the the third method regarding concerning this matter is regarding concerning that we find that a discussion between the ulama. And the Shaykh mentioned there's a lengthy discussion between the ulama on this particular topic regarding if the third where, if the people go out to try to see the start of the Ramadan, but but they were unable due to factors. So maybe it was very cloudy, very dusty, we were unable to have a proper sight of the in the skies. So because of this, that it is unclear whether Ramadan, the new crescent was born, or we're still in the month of Shaban. So you find that it's a possibility Ramadan did start, and the possibility Ramadan did not start. So because of this possibility between both ways, that you'll find that you mentioned that As for what is mentioned here by the author of the book, that is more inclined toward the view concerning that if the person find themselves in this situation where did Ramadan start or not start, they mentioned that for the people to start fasting, ihtiyatan, by way of being on the safe side. So by way of being on the safe side, if that person finds himself in that scenario, then by taking the safer route is for the person to fast that day as one of the days of Ramadan.
نعم. ثم هنا من قوله وإذا رأى الهلال وحده إلى نهاية الباب، يعني تقريبا 1 2 3 4 5 5 مسائل. هذه المسائل الخمسة إخواني هي متعلقة برؤية الهلال، يعني تفاصيل متعلقة برؤية الهلال. معظم المسلمين الآن، ويعني ربما كل الموجودين الآن معنا في المسجد، لا تهمهم هذه المسائل كثيرا. لماذا؟ لأننا لا أحد منا الآن يخرج إذا جاء يعني ليلة 30 فإنه يذهب ويتحرى الهلال. لا أحد يتحرى الهلال الآن من عموم الناس، وإنما هناك لجان خاصة وناس متخصصون وظيفتهم تحري الهلال. فلذلك المسائل الخمسة هذه التي ختم بها المؤلف الكتاب يعني لا تهمكم، فلذلك أنا أقترح أن نتجاوزها ونذهب إلى الباب الذي بعده لأنه هو المهم.
Yes, the Shaykh Hafidullah, he mentioned regarding concerning that as for what is mentioned next, which would be that based upon what is in this book, that when I mentioned فَإِذَا رَأَى الْهِلَالَ وَحْدَ, regarding concern the author mentioned regarding about 5 masail that will come next. So the next 5 matters that will be discussed are things that the Shaykh he mentioned that all relates to something around the same topic. But which he goes into some detail regarding this particular discussion. But he said, the Shaykh said that in reality regarding what is being mentioned here are things that you find that most of the Muslim, that it doesn't per se affect them by way of them going out. So these matters are being discussed are things that in most part does not affect the majority of the Muslim. So you don't find people who go out and look for themselves regarding Hilal, but what you will find that certain type of either specialized individuals or special group of individuals, then they will take it upon themselves to kind of somewhat to go and to look regarding the Hilal. But as for most people, most of us, it doesn't per se apply to us. We don't per se personally go out and try to find or to seek out the Hilal. So the Shaykh say, based upon this, that rather than go through these issues that are covered, you can somewhat just skip over them, as most Muslim, it doesn't per se affect most of us directly.
نعم. قال المؤلف رحمه الله تعالى باب أحكام المفطرين في رمضان. يعني إذا أفطر الإنسان، يعني نحن الآن عرفنا من الذي يجب عليه الصوم. طيب إذا أفطر الإنسان فما الذي عليه؟ ما الذي يجب عليه؟ هل يجب عليه أن يقضي أم لا؟ وهل يجب عليه أن يطعم مسكينا أو لا؟ هذا الباب يتكلم عن هذا الموضوع. من هم الأشخاص الذين يجوز لهم أن يفطروا في رمضان؟ من هم؟ سنتكلم عن هذا. وإذا أفطروا ماذا يجب عليهم؟ هل يجب عليهم القضاء فقط أم يجب عليهم القضاء والكفارة؟ هذا الذي سنعرفه إن شاء الله في هذا الباب، وهذا الباب مهم جدا لأنه يهمنا جميعا.
So the Shaykh, so based upon what's in this the handout, that we are at this particular place. So we're now starting concerning, we mentioned the rules apply to fast breaking during Ramadan. So we skip to that part on the handout, which would be page 92. Nam. So the Shaykh, as for the Shaykh, he commented, so he mentioned, so what will be discussed is regarding concerning those ahkam that relates to concerning that those people that that are allowed to break off their fast. So regarding concerning, so what are the rules that apply regarding the person was to break off their fast or not to fast? Then what are the rules that apply to such cases? So either you find in certain cases, so the thing to look at concerning if the person wants to break off their fast and not to fast, what are those things that are required from them? What are the things that are required for them to fulfill? Is it upon them to make qada, to make up for what they have missed? Is it upon them to do kafara? So that will be the discussion, and those things that affect all of us. These things that they're important because they affect each of us.
نعم. قال ويباح الفطر في رمضان لأربعة أقسام، يعني 4 فئات من الناس يجوز لهم أن يفطروا. الفئة الأولى قال أحدها المريض. أي مرض؟ طيب المرض أنواع، هناك مرض شديد، هناك مرض خفيف. فما هو المرض الذي يبيح للإنسان أن يفطر إذا أصابه؟ قال الذي يتضرر به، يعني مرض عافانا الله وإياكم، إذا صام هذا الإنسان فإن مرضه سيزيد أو سيتأخر الشفاء مثلا، أو يكون في مشقة كبيرة عليه إذا صام. هو ربما يستطيع الصوم لكن فيه مشقة كبيرة جدا عليه. إذن الصنف الأول المريض الذي يتضرر بمرضه لو صام، فهذا يجوز له أن يفطر. نعم.
So the Sheikh, he mentioned that as for what is mentioned here regarding of those group of people that are allowed to not to break off their fast, the author here mentioned 4 group of people. So there's 4 group of people that fall in this category that is allowed for them not to fast Ramadan. So as for the first of those group of people that are exempt or given this exemption that they mentioned, 1, al-marid. So the first of those group of people are those ones who are said to be those ones who are ill or sick. So the Shaykh mentioned that as for concern, so the thing is to know what is said to be, what is this level, or what is said to be, who is said to be ill. Also regarding concerning that, you'll find that illnesses may come of different degrees. Sometimes it is very severe, and at times it is light. So it's knowing regarding concerning that illness and the intensity or lack of the degree of that illness. So the Shaykh mentioned, as for that marad, as the author here mentioned, الَّذِي يَتَضَرَّ بِهِ, that as for that illness, that becomes like the guideline is regarding that illness, that it brings about harm, or it becomes harmful upon the person. Then he mentioned regarding concerning Shaykh, so meaning concern is now harmful upon the person by way of 1, it make the person illness becomes more severe. So at times it make it more severe. So the person, if he was to fast, then his illness become more severe. The second type of person that regarding concern that it will delay the personal recovery. So the second group are those ones, if he was to fast with his illness, it would delay the person's recovery. The third is concerned those people say mashaqah, it becomes something which is very difficult upon them. So very difficult that is upon them if they were to fast. Even though the person may be able to fast, but if he was to do so, it would be something which is very heavy upon them regarding them fasting. So it's those cases where it becomes more, it is harmful and then harmful upon them to fast.
نعم. قال والمسافر الذي له القصر فالفطر لهما أفضل. نعم. المسافر ليس كل مسافر يجوز له أن يفطر في رمضان، وإنما أي مسافر قال الذي له القصر، الذي يجوز له أن يقصر في الصلاة. نعم. والمسافر الذي يجوز له أن يقصر في الصلاة هذا ذكروه في كتاب الصلاة. في كتاب الصلاة يذكرون ما هو المسافر أو من هو المسافر الذي يجوز له أن يقصر بأن يتجاوز مدة معينة من المسافة. تمام. فالمسافر الذي يجوز له أن يقصر، وهذا يكون معروفا من خلال كتاب الصيام، فهذان الصنفان الآن المريض والمسافر، قال فالفطر لهما أفضل. الفطر لهما أفضل. هو يقول أفضل معناه أنه ليس واجبا، بمعنى أن هذا المريض أو هذا المسافر لو قال أنا أريد أن أصوم يجوز له أو لا؟ يقول المؤلف وإن صام أجزأهما. يعني إذا صام المسافر أو إذا صام المريض فصومه صحيح، صومه صحيح. وكذلك المسافر إذا صام أراد أن يصوم قال أنا ليس عندي مانع أن أصوم وأنا مسافر، فصام، صيامه صحيح. المريض الذي يتضرر بسبب مرضه لو عاند وقال أنا أريد أن أصوم، نقول صيامك صحيح. لكن ما الأفضل، ما الأحسن، ما الأفضل؟ أن يفطر. نعم. الأفضل هو أن يفطر. لماذا؟ لأنها رخصة، والله عز وجل يحب أن تؤتى رخصه كما يحب أن تؤتى عزائمه. وأيضا لقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ليس من البر الصيام في السفر. نعم. فالأحسن أن الإنسان إذا كان المرض يشق بك الأحسن أن تفطر، وكذلك السفر الأحسن أن تفطر في السفر. نعم.
So the Sheikh, Hafidullah, he mentioned regarding, commenting on the point that the author here mentioned regarding, so he mentioned first regarding the person's ill, then he mentioned also of those people that are exempt regarding al-musafir. So the person who is said to be a traveler, so the one who's a traveler, so of those ones who have this exemption, so the Shaykh mentioned regarding concern that, so this doesn't apply to every type of trip or travel the person will take. So that every type of trip that is involved, so it's a particular type of trip that the person is considered to be of those ones who are given this concession. So he mentioned here concerning alladhi lahu qasr. So the one who's given this concession as a person who's a musafir, as a traveler, that is allowed to not to fast. He mentioned here is a person that mentioned that the person have traveled a certain distance. So the person who is a traveler and have traveled a certain distance with a person in this distance that he has traveled, that is allowed to make qasr, is allowed to shorten his salat. So the type of travel that the person is given the exemption or the permission that is allowed to not to fast due to this travel, which is he is now allowed to shorten his salat. So the Shaykh mentioned concern that yajuz al-qasr. So and this matter regarding concerning in defining concerning that what is considered to be discussed regarding concerning that this case regarding qasr of salat, then this is more discussed further regarding concerning in the bab of kitab as-salat. So this discussion that regarding concerning musafir and is salat and those type of that would cover more in kitab as-salat, where they'll go in more detail in that discussion. But as for the musafir regarding the person taken concerning that the length of the person's journey that he has traveled, then the Shaykh mentioned regarding concerning that as for what the author here mentioned, وَالْفِطْرَ لَهُمَا أَفْضَلُ, that he mentioned فَالْفِطْرُ لَهُمَا أَفْضَلُ, that as for both of these cases regarding the person who's ill and also the person who's a traveler, that what is better for them is that afdal, which is he mentioned is better for them that they should not fast. It's better for them to not fast. He mentioned, he said that it does not mean that it's not something which is compulsory upon them to fast. So meaning that say something which is afdal, it is better. It means that it is not compulsory upon them, but rather it is something which is more preferred for them to do so. فَعَلَيْهُمَا قَضَى. Then he mentioned وَإِنْ سَامَ. Then he mentioned that also of those things that he mentioned here, that if they were to fast, where the person who is a traveler or the one who is ill, if they were to do so, then their siyam is considered to be valid. So even though they are exempted, but if they were to do so, that to fast, then also their fast is considered to be a valid fast. So the person may be ill, but he said, I want to fast, and he does perform fasting, then that fast is considered to be a valid siyam. But the Shaykh said overall that what is better, as mentioned, it is better for them not to. It's better for them to not to. As in the hadith we had mentioned regarding concern that, this is from a ruqsa, a concession from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love when you take off his concessions. And also the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where it mentioned ليس من البر, that is not of piety, that the person should fast in safar.
نعم، ننتقل إلى القسم الثاني. القسم الثاني هم الحائض والنفساء، وهذا خاص بالنساء. هذا خاص بالنساء. الحائض التي تأتيها الدورة الشهرية، والنفساء هذا الدم الذي يأتي المرأة بعد الولادة، وعادة يكون لمدة 40 يوما. هذان ما حكمهما؟ قال تفطران، يجب عليهما أن يفطران، يجب، بخلاف المريض والمسافر. مريض مسافر قلنا الأفضل، لكن الحائض والنفساء يجب عليهما أن يفطرا، وحرام عليهما أن يصوما. قال وإن صامتا لم يجزئهما أو لم يجزهما، يعني إذا صامتا فنقول عليهما إثم ولا يجزئهما، بمعنى يعني لا تسقط عنهما تكليف الصيام، بل يجب عليهما بعد الطهارة أن يقضيا ما عليهما من صوم. نعم.
So then the next of what is mentioned, that the second group of people that are mentioned regarding concerning that lady who see her monthly cycle, and second also that lady that have bleeding after childbirth. So those are of the next of those that are discussed regarding amongst those people who have certain exemption regarding a siyam. So I mentioned here that mentioned tuftiran, that both those type of group, the lady on her while she's having her menstrual cycle, and also a lady who is experiencing her after child bleeding. And the Shaykh mentioned as for the after child bleeding, that it may extend to about 40 days. So it may go to around 40 days, that she might up to 40 days while she's experiencing after child bleeding. But overall regarding concern, it is compulsory upon those two groups, which are this matter specific to females, that it is upon them, those females, that it is compulsory that they must not fast. So it's compulsory that they should not be fasting while they're in this state. Then he mentioned that where it becomes haram upon them to fast. So it's haram upon them to fast, and what is obliged upon them is that they should not be fasting. Then he mentioned that, and if they fast, then it is not per se counted. So if they fast while they're in the state of having their monthly cycle, or after child bleeding, if they were to fast while in this state, then it is not considered. It is not considered to be a valid siyam, and becomes still compulsory upon them that those days have to be made up after Ramadan. They have to still be made up after Ramadan.
نعم. الثالث من الأقسام الحامل والمرضع، وهذان أيضا خاصان بالنساء. الحامل والمرضع قال إذا خافتا على ولديهما، يعني الحامل خافت أنها إذا صامت سيضر هذا الولد، والمرضع نفس الشيء، خافت أنها إذا صامت سيتضرر الولد. فإذا كان هناك خوف على الولد من قبل المرضع أو الحامل فإنه يجوز لهما الفطر. قال أفطرتا. طيب إذا أفطرتا ماذا يفعلان بعد ذلك؟ قال وقضتا، يعني بعد أن تنتهي المشكلة الحمل ومشكلة الرضاعة ليس هناك أي خوف لا على المرأة ولا على الولد، حينئذ تقضي ما عليها من أيام قبل دخول رمضان الجديد. نعم. ثم قال وأطعمتا عن كل يوم مسكينا. نعم. وأطعمتا عن كل يوم مسكينا. لو فرضنا أن هذه المرأة الحامل أو هذه المرأة المرضع دخل عليها رمضان وهي خافت أن تصوم لأنها خافت أن يتضرر الولد، فنقول يجوز لها أن تفطر، فأفطرت مثلا رمضان كاملا. نقول بعد أن ينتهي رمضان عليها أن تقضي هذه الأيام 30 وتطعم مكان كل يوم صامته مسكينا. يعني كم مسكين؟ إذا هي صامت 30 مسكين، أفطرت 30 يوما، كم مسكينا تطعم؟ 30. نعم. فيكون عليها إطعام 30 مسكينا. طيب ماذا تطعم المسكين؟ ماذا تطعمه؟ نقول تعطيه وجبة مشبعة. وجبة مشبعة، إما غداء وإما عشاء، يكون شيء مشبع يشبع منه الإنسان الواحد، سواء أعطته إياه مطبوخا أو كان غير مطبوخ لا بأس، لا فرق بين هذا وهذا، المهم أنه يكون وجبة مشبعة لشخص واحد. قال وإن صامتا أجزأهما. نعم. لو قالت المرأة الحامل أو المرضع أنا ليس عندي مشكلة، نعم هو قد يكون فيه ضرر لكن أنا سأصوم، نقول صيامهما صحيح.
So the next point that is mentioned here regarding concerning, which applies to particularly concerning females, so of those points that specific regarding siyam that applies to female in only is regarding concern that if she, as mentioned here concerning that, if the lady is considered to be she's pregnant or she's breastfeeding. So in the cases regarding concerning a female that is pregnant during Ramadan, or she's breastfeeding during Ramadan, and it mentioned as you know that they fear regarding their child. So they have fear regarding their child, meaning that if they were to fast, they'd have some impact upon their child. They are mentioned here that they are to make up. So it mentioned that in that case regarding, so they have this fear regarding that something may occur with their child because of their condition, and it is fasting. So the Shaykh mentioned that it's allowed for them that they can break their fast. So it's allowed that they do not per se fast because of that concern that they are fear that they have for their child. Then it mentioned as for what to be done, that is for qada. So as for what is to be done because of not fasting those days, that they should make up those days that are missed, that they missed during Ramadan, and that they try to make up those days as before the coming Ramadan was to arrive. So they try to make it before the coming of the next Ramadan. So that's concerning those cases. Then I mentioned إطعام.
نعم. الإطعام يكون وجبة مشبعة، إما غداء وإما عشاء.
يكون هذا مع القضاء.
نعم يكون مع القضاء. نعم.
أي. So also the Shaykh فهو يرى أنه القضاء مع الإطعام.
مع الإطعام.
أي.
نعم.
So the author kind of somewhat is more inclined to the view regarding concerning the lady that the pregnant lady or the one who is breastfeeding, if they kind of somewhat fear for their child, so they fear regarding concerning that their pregnancy will have an impact on their child, so they make up they not to fast, what to be done in that case, the days that they miss because of that circumstance, that those days that were missed, they are to be made up. So each day that was to be made up and preferable before the next coming Ramadan. And also with this, that they feed a poor person for each day that was missed. So they feed a poor person for each day that was missed. That's concerning that. And what is to be given as a way is like a meal. So to be like a meal that the person, kind of somewhat said, full the person. So a person get a full meal regarding what is to be fed to those person regarding as a form of them being fed a meal due to that circumstance. And the person received is a miskin, a person who is said to be a poor person. So that's concerning that matter. So they combine between qada wal it'am.
No.
So from what the Sheikh saw with that case, that they combine between making up those days, and also second, that they feed a poor person for each day. Then the Sheikh mentioned that as for what is mentioned here, he commented regarding that it's also if they were to fast, that a pregnant lady or the one who's breastfeeding, that they did fast. They did fast. Then he mentioned that also it is sufficient. Then that is counted. And they don't have to make up those days after.
نعم. الرابع العاجز عن الصوم. إنسان لا يستطيع أن يصوم أصلا. لا يستطيع. وهذا يعني بخلاف ما تقدم من أقسام. فالقسم الرابع الآن إنسان لا يستطيع أن يصوم. لماذا؟ قال لكبر، إما لأنه كبير في السن أو مرض لا يرجى برؤه. يعني مرض لا يعني قال له الأطباء هذا ليس له علاج، ليس له شفاء، فهو لا يستطيع أن يصوم. تمام؟ يعني لا يستطيع أن يصوم الفرض ولا يستطيع أن يصوم القضاء. فماذا يفعل؟ قال فإنه يطعم عنه لكل يوم مسكين. نفس ما قلنا قبل قليل. فيحسب كم يوم هو أفطر، فمقابل هذه الأيام يطعم عن كل يوم مسكينا كما قلنا وجبة مشبعة.
So the next point that is mentioned regarding concerning al-ajiz and so on. So the next of those people that are mentioned here regarding the person who's unable to fast, the person that is unable to fast. So the Shaykh mentioned regarding concerning that as for that person who's unable to fast, as we had mentioned, pointed before, so it's being discussed here regarding that person who's unable to fast. Of those reasons concerning a person unable to fast regarding al-kibr, with a person due to that they are more senior in age. So because the person may be senior in age, more they're unable to fast. Also, it could be the person that you have an illness, that it is a terminal illness. So a person have a terminal illness, where the doctor said, mentioned a person that illness is terminal, is one which is, so it's a continuous illness, the person that he has, where they see that there's no cure for that person, there's no cure for that person. So that person, that is not upon them to fast, they're unable to fast, they're whether the compulsory fast or voluntary fast, they're not able to do any fast because of their condition. So as for that person who falls in this category, then what is upon them to be done? So what is upon the person who falls in this case where they are unable to fast due to those circumstances? After the thing that is upon them to be done, as mentioned here, is regarding that the person, he should, for each day that is missed, so each day that is missed, not that they did not fast, then the person that he feeds a poor person for each that he missed. So each that he missed, he calculate that those days, and he would feed a poor person for each day that is missed. And as we mentioned, the person, what is the person giving a meal for the compensation.
قال وعلى سائر من أفطر القضاء لا غير. يعني أن الإطعام المسكين هذا خاص بهذه الفئات الثلاثة: العاجز والحامل والمرضع. هؤلاء هم الذين يطعمون المسكين. الحامل والمرضع والعاجز. العاجز يدخل فيه الكبير في السن والمريض مرضا لا يرجى شفاؤه. هؤلاء هم الذين يطعمون. أما باقي من أفطر فإنهم يقضون فقط وليس عليهم شيء آخر. فمثلا المسافر إذا أفطر فإنه يقضي فقط ليس عليه قضاء.
So as what is mentioned concerning that, as for these what to be done regarding concerning if they were to fall in a case that they miss certain day, then he mentioned that what is to be done regarding that qada, that upon them is to make up those days. here من أفطر قضاء لا غير.
يعني فقط الفئة التي تطعم هي الحامل والمرضع والعاجز. هؤلاء هم الذين يطعمون. باقي من أفطر مثل المسافر مثلا لو أفطر عليه فقط القضاء وليس عليه الإطعام.
So they mention regarding concerning those who miss, regarding concerning days of Ramadan, that either they fall in a category of people that they have to make qada. So concern that the person who just make up what was missed. So the person who said to be a musafir and the likes, that those people, that they will just per se make up the days that were missed. As for the ones who have to make what they mentioned concerning that, they have to also feed someone. Instead, they will feed someone not to make up. Regarding concerning a person who's the pregnant lady, so she would also, the one who's also breastfed, and also the person's ages. For them, they will kind of somewhat, they'll feed a person for each day that is missed. So the person concerning ages, the person was because of his old age, or also the person who have an illness that there's no cure, is a terminal illness. So for those people that they will feed a poor person for each day. So that would include the pregnant lady, the one who's breastfeeding, and also the one whose ages they would. But as for the others, then they would make up those days after.
نعم. ثم انتقل يتكلم عن الجماع في نهار رمضان. الجماع في نهار رمضان كما نعلم محرم، لكن إذا فعل الإنسان هذا فله أحكام خاصة، له أحكام خاصة تختلف عن من فعل شيئا آخر من المفطرات. فمن وقع في هذا محظور وهو الجماع في نهار رمضان الذي هو من كبائر الذنوب، يعني هو شيء محرم، فما حكمه؟ قال إلا من أفطر بجماع في الفرج، إذا يعني جامع في الفرج فإنه أولا عليه القضاء، يقضي هذا اليوم الذي أفسده. تمام؟ فلو فرضنا أنه جامع في نهار واحد فعليه أن يقضي يوما واحدا. ويعتق رقبة، طبعا عتق الرقبة ليس موجودا الآن في هذا الزمن. فإن لم يجد، أي إذا لم يجد عتق رقبة كما هو الحال الآن في زماننا، ماذا يفعل؟ قال فصيام شهرين متتابعين. وهذا كما ترون يعني مدة طويلة جدا عقوبة له على ما فعل، أن هذا جريمة كبيرة أن الإنسان يجامع في نهار رمضان، هذا انتهاك لحرمة رمضان. فإذا نقول عليه القضاء، ثم عليه أن يعتق رقبة. طيب لا يوجد رقبة، يصوم شهرين، ليس فقط شهرين متتابعين، يعني لا يفصل بينهما. واضح؟ فإن لم يستطع، أي لم يستطع أن يصوم شهرين متتابعين، فماذا يفعل؟ قال فإطعام 60 مسكينا. لماذا 60؟ لأنه مقابل إيش؟ مقابل 30 و30، يعني مقابل الشهرين، لأنه هو ما استطاع أن يصوم شهرين. نقول له طيب الشهران كم يوم فيهما؟ 60 تقريبا، فحينئذ يطعم 60 مسكينا. طيب فإن لم يجد، يعني لم يستطع أن يطعم 60 مسكينا، ماذا يفعل؟ قال سقطت عنه، يعني سقطت عنه الكفارة، يعني ليس عليه شيء آخر. حينئذ نقول له استغفر وتب إلى الله، ليس هناك شيء.
So what is mentioned here regarding concern of those ahkam that relate to Ramadan, as mentioned here, that regarding concern the case or circumstance regarding a person who falls into sexual relation during Ramadan. So a person who fell into a sexual relationship during Ramadan. So what is the ahkam that relates to this? So the Shaykh mentioned that the person who fall into this, then it is have specific rulings that pertain to cases like these. And the Shaykh also clarified that the person was to fall into this, then the person doing something which is haram and of a major sin that a person is involved in regarding intimacy during the month of Ramadan or the daylight hours of Ramadan. So I mentioned regarding concerning that which is concerning al-jima, where intimacy, where that a penetration occurred, where penetration occurred. So what is upon such person who fell into such act during Ramadan? So the one who fell into intimacy during the month of Ramadan, while fasting, then what is upon that person regarding that one of those things that are mentioned, that the day that they did the intimacy, then that person have to make up that day, so that day have to be made up after Ramadan. So that's one of the things to be done. Also, of those things added to this, that the person, that if he's able, then he should free a slave. So if the person is able has the ability, then he should free a slave, sort of the things to be done. But the Shaykh mentioned, as for this, is not per se available at this time. It's not something which is available at this time, or something that is with us at this time. Then he mentioned that if the person is unable to free a slave, then a person go to the next step, which is that a person have to fast 2 consecutive months. So the person have to fast 2 consecutive months. I mentioned with the tabi'in that the person have to do them without any break in between. So when he starts, he continue until he ends. So fasting 2 consecutive months. So that's what is expected from the person to be done. If the person unable to do so, then the person go to the next level, which is the person that he has to provide food, a meal for 60 people. So providing food to feed 60 poor people. If regarding this matter, Sheikh mentioned why 60 people. Then this is 60 is a form of concern that it can somewhat equate to the amount of days. So the 2 months would be 60 days. The 2 months would be 60 days. So that is why 60 people is to be fed. Then they mentioned if the person unable, then the person go to the next step. The person unable to do of this, then if the author mentioned that sakata anhu, then the person he does nothing. So the person is unable to fulfill any of those previously mentioned things, then there's nothing upon him. There's nothing upon the person who fell into this act. But so there's no kafara, no expiation for that, for what he has done, because he's unable to carry out those things that were mentioned previously. Then, but what's upon a person that he should make istighfar for what he had done to the person, that upon them to make istighfar, seek repentance for what they have done. أيوة.
نعم. ثم قال فإن جامع ولم يكفر حتى جامع ثانيا فكفارة واحدة. يعني مثلا نفترض أن إنسانا جامع في نهار رمضان بعد صلاة الفجر مثلا، ولم يكفر، لم يدفع الكفارة، ثم بعد صلاة الظهر جامع مرة ثانية، واضح؟ في نفس اليوم جامع مرة ثانية، فكم كفارة عليه؟ واحدة. نعم، هذه المسألة.
Okay, so the next matter to discuss regarding this matter that relates to intimacy in Ramadan, the person involved in intimacy in Ramadan, that is mentioned regarding concerning if the person was to have intimacy, then went back and repeat intimacy again twice, then what's upon that person? So the Shaykh mentioned, for example, that a person of intimacy that day, and then again later on, before he made those expiation, that he fell into the same act again. So he did it, and then he went back again and did it a second time before he made the expiation. So what's upon that person? Then that is considered to be 1. So even though it occurred twice, the act occurred twice, 2 occasions, but it is counted as 1 expiation to be made for that scenario.
الآن صورة ثانية قال وإن كفر ثم جامع فكفارة ثانية. نعم، الآن الصورة الثانية أنه جامع ثم كفر، دفع الكفارة، تمام؟ ثم بعد أن دفع الكفارة جامع مرة ثانية، فماذا عليه؟ عليه كفارة أخرى. أحسنت. نعم.
So what we mentioned, the first scenario, the other case or scenario that may occur, that as mentioned by the author, that he mentioned that if a person was to have intimacy during Ramadan, then after intimacy, then he did the kafara. He did the kafara. He paid his kafara, his expiation. Then after he paid it, and still in Ramadan, he went back again and did intimacy. He went back again and did intimacy a second time. So what's upon this person? Then the person again for the second time, he has to make another kafara. He has to make another expiation for the second time that he did.
نعم. وكل من لزمه الإمساك في رمضان إذا جامع فعليه كفارة. نعم، هذا مثاله لو أن إنسانا قدم من السفر. طيب، فإذا وصل إلى البلد، يعني مثلا أنت كنت مسافرا خارج لندن، فإذا رجعت إلى لندن مع صلاة الظهر، الآن باقي من الظهر إلى المغرب، هذا كله رمضان. طيب، أنت كنت مسافرا وكنت مفطرا، صح؟ طيب، الآن هذا الوقت الذي من الظهر إلى المغرب نقول لك لا تأكل ولا تشرب ولا تجامع احتراما لرمضان، تمام؟ لكن لو أنه جامع في هذا الوقت ماذا عليه؟ عليه كفارة. نعم عليه كفارة.
Right. So the next matter to discuss is regarding concerning the case that is mentioned here, that a scenario, a case regarding that mentioned regarding the Shaykh mentioned. So the example of this would be that if a person is a traveler, so the person is a traveler, so he has reached, so the person have come, for example, so he have reached his destination at Dhuhr. So he's traveling and now he has reached his destination at Dhuhr. So between Dhuhr and he's not fasting, so the person, the traveler, arrive at his destination at the time of Dhuhr, and so he have reached his destination, so and he's not fasting because he's a musafir, a traveler. So between Dhuhr and Maghrib, that time, free time, you heard, he has that time in between. So the person between Dhuhr and Maghrib is not actually fasting. But the person, he had intimacy during that time. So what's upon the person?
كفارة.
Kafara. So the person upon him, clear the scenario. So again, the person is a traveler. So the person have a valid reason not to fast, which is he's a musafir, he's a traveler. But when he arrived, when he arrived at his place of his destination, he still have a little leeway time regarding from Dhuhr until Maghrib, right? But during that time, the person engage in intimacy.
No.
So it said that as for that case, the person upon him, what? A kafara. Now, so the Shaykh mentioned that, and this, as I said, even though the person have that, he's not, but because of trying to, as I said, showing respect to the time, so that time should be like respected. But the person had intimacy during that time, so upon him is kafara.
ثم تكلم عن مسألة أخرى مهمة، وهي حكم من أخر القضاء. إنسان أخر عليه القضاء الذي عليه حتى دخل عليه رمضان جديد، فهذا ما حكمه؟ قال من أخر القضاء ومن أخر القضاء لعذر حتى أدركه رمضان آخر فليس عليه غيره، وإن فرط أطعم مع القضاء لكل يوم مسكينا. إذا نقول هذا الإنسان الذي عليه قضاء ثم دخل عليه رمضان جديد، نقول هو لا يخلو من حالتين. الحالة الأولى أن يكون عنده عذر، الحالة الثانية أن يكون ليس عنده عذر. فالحالة الأولى إذا كان عنده عذر بأن كان مثلا مسافرا أو مريضا أو إلى آخره، ما استطاع أن يقضي حتى دخل عليه رمضان الجديد، هل عليه إثم؟ لا. هل عليه كفارة؟ لا. هل عليه قضاء؟ نعم، القضاء يبقى عليه أن يقضي بعد أن ينتهي رمضان الجديد، لكن ليس عليه إلا القضاء فقط. طيب الحالة الثانية لو أخر القضاء حتى دخل عليه رمضان الجديد لكن ليس عنده عذر، ليس عنده عذر، لم يكن مريضا ولا مسافرا، لكن هو كسول ليس مهتما حتى دخل عليه رمضان الجديد. أولا نقول هو آثم، عليه التوبة والاستغفار. ثانيا عليه إيش؟ عليه الكفارة. أحسنت، يطعم عن كل يوم مسكينا. طيب رقم 3 عليه القضاء. أحسنت. نعم.
So the next matter to discuss regarding those matters is regarding concerning the scenario or the case regarding that a person was to delay making up for Ramadan until the next Ramadan arrive. So the person that he has fasting to be made up. So the person has fast to be made up, but the person delay it until the next Ramadan arrives. So what's concerning this scenario? The Shaykh mentioned there's two scenarios, or there's two cases that so they fall into two matters. That one, that the person who the other Ramadan had those things to be made up, but it was delayed until the next Ramadan arrived. But he has a reason, a valid reason. So that, for example, the person who is ill, so the person, because of his illness, he was unable to make up what was missed until the arrival of the new Ramadan. So the person have a valid reason, so he's excused, and upon him is just to still make up what he had missed. The second scenario, so for that person in the first scenario that he had a valid reason and his situation is valid regarding delaying of making up until the next Ramadan arrive, that a person, there's no sin upon the person, there's no kafara upon the person, that what is only upon them, what is upon them is for them to make al-qadha, for them to still make up what was missed, because it hasn't been paid or carried out. Then the second scenario is a case where a person that he have no other, he has no per se valid excuse. The person that does not have a valid excuse regarding that they delayed out of negligence, out of laziness, regarding making up for the next coming Ramadan. So in that scenario, Sheikh, he mentioned that as for that person, that they're considered to be, they have done something which is sinful, also upon them to make tawbah wa istighfar. Also regarding for that person, also that person, they make kafara, and that kafara is that they feed a poor person for each day that they had missed, that they did not fulfill. And also upon them is al-qadha. And also upon them that they have to also still make up those days that is still owed.
نعم. ثم نتكلم هنا عن آخر مسألة تقريبا أو قبل الأخيرة. قال وإن ترك القضاء حتى مات لعذر فلا شيء عليه، وإن كان لغير عذر أطعم عنه لكل يوم مسكين. نفس المسألة السابقة، إنسان عليه قضاء أيام، قبل أن يقضي مات، تمام؟ قبل أن يقضي مات، فمات عليه أيام، فما الحكم؟ نقول إذا كان يعني لعذر، تأخيره للقضاء لعذر، فكأن كان مريضا أو مسافرا ما استطاع أن يقضي فليس عليه شيء. وأما إن كان لغير عذر، يعني كان متساهلا متهاونا مفرطا، طيب، فحينئذ يطعم عن كل يوم مسكين. نعم.
So the next scenario is mentioned here that the Sheikh said we'll end with this one regarding concerning that man taraka al-qada hatta mat, that the person who that that their qada was not made up until the person he died. So the person that he had tarak al-qada, he missed concerning making up, but the person then he died. The Shaykh mentioned that it is somewhat like the scenario before, where either a person that he had an excuse, a valid excuse regarding concern that he had days that were to be made up, but before he was able to do so, that he died. So the Shaykh mentioned that if the person have a valid excuse regarding, for example, the person have an excuse that he was ill, before he's able to make this up, that death came upon him. In that case, the person, there's nothing upon that person regarding that particular scenario. Then the second case is regarding concern that the person that it occurred, but the person had no valid excuse. So days to be made up. The person was very negligent regarding the matter, lazy in approaching the matter. So and that came upon the person. So in this case, concerned that the person that he mentioned that each day that the person somewhat missed or have as to be made up, then someone will be fed, a poor person will be fed on his behalf.
نعم. قال إلا أن يكون الصوم منذورا فإنه يصام عنه. في هذه الصورة يصام عنه، بمعنى أن إنسان قال عنده اختبارات مثلا في الجامعة، فقال إذا أنا نجحت في هذه الامتحانات سأصوم لله 10 أيام مثلا، ثم مات، نصوم عنه ولا لا؟ نصوم عنه. قال فإنه يصام عنه، فوليه أو أقاربه واحد منهم يصوم عنه هذه الأيام. قال وكذلك كل نذر طاعة. كيف يعني كل نذر طاعة؟ يعني إنسان، هذا الكلام الذي قلناه ليس فقط خاصا بالصيام بل أي عبادة. مثلا إنسان قال إذا أنا نجحت في الامتحانات أو في الجامعة سأصلي لله 2 مثلا، ثم مات، فماذا نفعل؟ نصلي عنه. نعم.
So the next scenario that the Shaykh mentioned here, or is mentioned here regarding concerning that, the case or scenario regarding that the person can somewhat have a sawm another. So the person can somewhat mention, for example, that the person says that if I was to pass, he has exams. So the person said, if I pass my exam, then I will fast such and such days. If I have exam, I'll fast X amount of days. Then the person can somewhat stipulate this regarding that if he was to pass, then he would carry out siyam. Then the Shaykh mentioned that if the person was to die in that scenario, what is to be done on his behalf? Are we able to fast on his behalf or not? So the Shaykh mentioned that fasting can be done on his behalf. So fasting, those days, that fasting can be done on behalf of that person who made this oath regarding if they were to pass their exam, then they will fast X amount of days, but they died. So someone can fast on their behalf. And no one concerned their wali, that their guardian or family member can fast on their behalf. Then he mentioned that also the same rule kind of somewhat applies regarding any form of ta'ah. So anything that are considered to be an act of obedience, where a person make the stipulation that if I, for example, pass my exam, then I'll make rak'atain, I'll make X amount of rak'ah. Then, and the person was to die, then can we make those rak'ah on their behalf? Yes, that one can pray those rak'at, that the person will stipulate if this was to, if they were to pass the exam, then they want this to be done, then someone can carry this out on their behalf. So with that, أيوة.
نعم، وبهذا نكون انتهينا من درسنا اليوم. أنا أعلم ربما بعض الإخوة عنده أسئلة، لكن سامحوني اليوم عندي موعد فأريد أن أخرج قبل الأذان. غدا إن شاء الله يعني نستمع إلى كل الأسئلة التي عندكم إن شاء الله. سامحوني فقط هذه المرة، وجزاكم الله خيرا، وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
So Sheikh Hafidullah, you mentioned regarding concerning that, so this we will end for today regarding concerning this session, regarding discussing of this book. And the Sheikh that, تفضل Sheikh, that regarding concerning to know that you have an appointment. So you know the brothers may have questions are there, but because of the, you have to have an appointment that he has to leave immediately. So the question will be taken on tomorrow inshallah. Okay? تفضل جزاك الله خير.